So, UFC Fight Night Whittaker vs Chimaev was gonna take place this weekend, but Hamza pulled out due to health complications, so now we have Ikram Aliskerov stepping in on short notice against Robert Whittaker instead. And I was actually looking forward to Chimaev vs Whittaker a lot, and not too long ago I actually made a video about Hamza where I went in pretty hard on him. No Jones, but it's honestly quite sad that he has such problems with his health. Anyways, enough yapping for today. Let's get into Robert Whittaker versus Ikram Aliskerov. First of all, Robert Whittaker is a fighter who is actually quite well-rounded. He's mainly a striker. I would say that he's one of the best strikers in the division, definitely top 3. He has both nice kicks and nice boxing. He's really fast and he uses a lot of blitzes, which basically means that he moves into range quickly, and after landing some shots, he moves out of range quickly. I personally believe that he is the fastest fighter in the division. We see this time and time again, how he basically outspeeds all of his opponents. Like in his fight against Costa, Vettori, and even in his second fight against Adesanya. Whittaker does stand quite lead leg heavy and bladed, and of course this opens him up for the leg kicks, but it does make it easier for him to move in and out. The low stance also makes it easier for him to defend takedowns, which he'll need in this fight. In his Costa fight, Costa would throw out a jab or a straight, but he would almost never reach Whittaker, and that is because Whittaker kinda leans in with his head sometimes. Actually kinda similar how Canelo does in boxing, so when his opponent throws punches, he can just lean back a little bit and then come back with a counter. And speaking of counters, Whittaker often slips his head to his left and throws a right hand followed up by something else. And he lands this counter a lot in most of his fights, in his last fight against Costa for example. And speaking of his fight against Costa, I was scared, man, before that fight because of his loss against Strickis, and I feared that his career would start to go downhill. But Whittaker absolutely destroyed Costa in that fight, man. Costa basically had no highlights in that fight besides the head kick in the first round, and basically my point is that he looked really good in his last fight. Whittaker also has some really solid takedown defense, one of the best defensive wrestlers in middleweight. He defended a lot of takedowns in his fights against Romero, and a lot of people think of Yoel Romero as a striker because of the insane highlights he has. However, Yoel Romero actually won a silver medal in the Wrestling Olympics, so Romero was actually a very solid wrestler, even though he was known for his knockouts and explosive fighting style in MMA. Whittaker also has decent offensive wrestling. He was able to take down Adesanya multiple times in their second fight, and also took down Dricus in their fight. However, Whittaker does have a pretty obvious weakness though, and that is his shin. His shin is a little sketchy, man. Sometimes he gets hurt by shots that are not that hard and shots you don't expect him to be hurt by. Another weakness is his lack of power. He's not the type of striker to knock you out, instead he's more of a volume striker. Ikram is also a very good fighter, but he is actually quite different from Hamza when you compare them both style-wise. Ikram is actually a lot more well-rounded than Hamza is, but his wrestling is a little bit worse, and he isn't as explosive as Hamza. Ikram is actually quite a solid striker. He has both nice kicks and nice boxing. He's also quite powerful on the feet. If he catches you clean, he is definitely rocking you. And some criticism I have for him is that his footwork is pretty trash, but the thing that's special about him on the feet is definitely his power. He isn't super technical or super explosive. Besides that, he's also Dagestani, so you already know he has that wrestling, brother. I wouldn't say he's as good as Hamza in the wrestling though, but instead he's more well-rounded and he has better cardio, which is probably the biggest difference between him and Hamza. Whittaker versus Hamza was all about if Whittaker could survive the first round or not. But Ikram actually has the ability to fight for multiple rounds, which Hamza does not. Ikram also hasn't fought an opponent of decent caliber, and he certainly hasn't fought an opponent of Robert Whittaker's caliber, which is the biggest problem with Ikram in my opinion. It is very hard to measure how good someone truly is if they've always fought cans. And basically in terms of skills, I believe Robert Whittaker is way above Ikram. So basically I am picking Robert Whittaker to win this fight. I think Whittaker's takedown defense is good enough to keep this fight on the feet. And on the feet, Ikram shouldn't have that many problems for Whittaker. However, Ikram does have a lot of power and everyone knows that Whittaker is a little bit shinny. So in that way, Ikram can cause problems for Whittaker. However, Whittaker is so much faster and so much more technical than Ikram that I have a very hard time seeing Ikram being able to keep up with Whittaker on the feet. And he's never fought a striker as good as Whittaker before. Whittaker also looked really good in his last fight against Paulo Costa. And in my opinion, I feel like Costa and Ikram are actually a little bit similar when it comes to the striking. They're both quite powerful and rely a lot on their power and physique. So in summary, we're probably going to see another Whittaker schooling on the feet. Ikram is going to want to take down Whittaker, but Whittaker has solid takedown defense, man. And I trust in him to defend most of the takedowns and get up when he gets taken down. Whittaker isn't really much of a finisher though, so I think he gets it done by decision. And it's really sad that Hamza had to pull out because I was actually really looking forward to seeing him lose to Whittaker. But hopefully it isn't anything serious and he can come back in the future. Anyways, thanks for watching, leave a like, subscribe, comment if you agree or disagree with my prediction, and share this video to someone who thinks Ikram Aliskerov is gonna win. And I'll see you all in the next one, goodbye.